Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Rise. I'm your host, Bridget Howard. Joining me today is Fox Sports host and reporter, Jenny Taft. Jenny, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello. It's so great to see you. I can't believe it's been a couple years now, but it's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad we get to catch up today. Like we said, it's been too long, so I'm excited to dive back into things with you. But to get things started, we're going to go back to your college days. You went to Boston University, played lacrosse there. Did you always know that broadcasting was the path for you when you headed into college?
Great question. And yes, we're really going back. I love it. You know, it's funny because I did always want to work in sports and I always wanted to be in front of the camera. I mean, that was the dream gig. I think I would have enjoyed just being involved in sports had this not worked out. But when I was looking at colleges, I played hockey and lacrosse in high school. Those were my two big sports. And I wanted to go to a school where I could do one of the two. Often it looked more like Division III schools just based on, let's be honest, like I was a decent lacrosse player, but I didn't play, every single game, and hockey too. Like I could have played at a couple D1 schools and a couple D3, but I ended up looking at BC, and it's a funny story how I was driving through the BU campus and my dad and I still remember this. We're like, wait, BU. Why didn't we think about BU? I had BC kind of in my brain as the place I was supposed to end up. And then my dad and I drove past the College of Communications and I just was like, wait a second, this is a school that's known for this. I want to do this. And it just felt in that moment like BU was the right place. And luckily I got in, and the College of Communications was such a great fit for me. There were so many just options in Boston. Just going to college in Boston is so fun. I mean, I would take the T to Fenway Park and like set up shop. I found an old clip the other day of me like in front of Fenway, and my voice is different. And you're just, you just figure out a way to do it and schlup all your gear. I'd take it to the lacrosse practice, and BU was such a great fit for me for that because I was able to play lacrosse. It was such a cool experience for those 4 years. And then really I knew I wanted to do broadcasting. So I could not be more happy with just BU and that experience for me. And luckily, my coach let me leave early on a couple Wednesdays to go host BU TV. I think that's what it was called. It was like Terrier Nation. That was our sports show. So it all worked out.
Well, for athletes listening who are interested in broadcasting, how were you able to manage like your strenuous athletic schedule with getting on-air experience?
Yeah, gosh, I honestly, sometimes I'm like, did we sleep in college? Like, where did we find the time? Like, I don't know if I could go back now and do it again. I think like, oh, I'm tired now. I wake up early now for Undisputed, but like, you just figure it out, right? Like you find a way. And I think what's so unique with athletes who have those connections into the athletic department. So if you're playing a sport, oftentimes maybe they don't have a broadcast TV department or role, but if you're kind of offering up those skills, a lot of times those athletic departments want to be supportive of that. And I think we've grown a lot since I was in school, but we talk about the digital platforms and just social media. And if you're saying, hey, I want to go do Sideline for the basketball games, and they don't have that at the moment, even just to put it on digital, a lot of those athletic departments will be supportive of that. And I think your coaches, it's different everywhere, right? And it was a big commitment during lacrosse season, and I probably did less during season because I was traveling as well. But if you can find the time and those athletic departments want to support your future and your goals, I think you can work with them. And I've seen it so much. I've seen a lot of athletes able to do Sideline on the side for other teams, and you already have those connections. I mean, my husband played ice hockey at BU, but there were days where like I would go film his teammates just for practice, and we still have some of those clips, and it's like, oh, this is not great. Like I have come a long way from those. We did like a cribs edition where I went and I saw their dorm, and it was just not good, but it was also like great. It was reps, right? So you just find a way, and just, I think, never be afraid to ask for those opportunities. And that's not only in college, but right now. I mean, if you see a place or a team that maybe is lacking in something you've seen in another place, a lot of times, this younger generation knows and sees the social presence, and there's just a lot more opportunities for growth.
Definitely. I think the digital platforms can just elevate, teams and their social media footprint as well. I think it's just a different space that we're moving into. And we kind of talked about that earlier. And it's a really cool thing that I think can benefit a lot of people.
I think the digital space is growing at a rate that we probably don't even understand where it is capable of going. And I try to keep up with everything. I'm like, I just made a TikTok, but I'm not going to lie. Like, I have someone helping me with it who's from the social team. I met her through Fox and she's been helping me. But I believe that, yes, maybe a traditional digital reporter role isn't the end goal. But if you're creating content, creating space, making your name known within a team or an organization, that's just, you can get hired any which way, right? And just not being afraid to do something that's maybe a little bit, not the traditional sideline reporter role or hosting role, but creating content and being a part of a team and organization, people will see your face and recognize you. And if the goal is sideline, then those people already know who you are. So I'm never afraid. Like, I think the digital roles, in a lot of ways, like, that's where the growth is going to be for these upcoming broadcasters in a lot of ways.
Well, Fox Sports North was where your journey began after VU. How did that role come about?
Well, and it was interesting too, because I had interned at Fox Sports North in high school, had a great time. Still to this day, I'm close with a lot of the producers and on-air talent. I mean, it really is like, if I go back to Minnesota, which I wish I was there more, and this last year was a little different, but I used to go into the office and still catch up, and I haven't done it in a while. Now I feel bad, but whenever I'm in Minnesota, it's like a day trip now. But I'm actually looking forward to, hopefully this college football season, I might have a game at Minnesota to open the year, which would be a very full circle moment for me. I think my family will have to host the entire TV crew if that happens. But it started at North, and I had been living in New York City at the time, somewhat naively post-college, thinking, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll get a job, kind of like similar. I'll do behind the scenes. I'll do some kind of social. I'll be in front of a camera for a company. I started in PR, and it's New York. That's not going to happen right away. And I gave it a shot and realized pretty quickly that if I was going to get started, I was probably going to have to send my tape around to smaller markets. And that traditional route, moved back to Minnesota, and Fox Sports North had started this Fox Sports Girl Ambassador program where they wanted on-air talent to attend games, talk about the game, be passionate fans. I do all those things. And I was from Minnesota, and they knew I wanted to be on air. So when I took the role, it was very much let's see where this goes, as this is a new thing, and we'll help you grow as well. So on the side, while I was going to games, I was also shadowing Marnie Gellner, who still works for the Twins. She's still the Timberwolves reporter. I was around it. So they were able to kind of help me and believed in me, which I think is so crucial. Like, to this day, I'm here because Fox Sports North gave me opportunities on the side and believed in me to then do in-arena hosting, which I also have told many aspiring reporters, like, do the in-arena stuff because it's live, and hearing the delay is kind of crazy to get used to, but those reps and the visibility all help me. And still people are like, oh, you worked for the Wild. And I'm like, well, I technically just did in-arena hosting, but that was a way to be seen in that market. So I'm so thankful of them. And I often say, just get your foot in the door, work hard, do well. But then if there's an ultimate goal of you being in front of the camera, and I think if you work hard, a lot of those places will want to help you, at least give you a shot to see if you can get the reps. And I was really lucky in that sense.
Well, you got that shot in 2013 to audition for FS1. You were then hired for its launch as an update anchor. What was that process like, going through the audition and then to getting hired?
It gives me kind of chills thinking about it still. 2013, I can't believe I've been here for that long, and it's been such a special experience. A little of the backstory is I had been working at Fox Sports North part-time, and like we chatted off air, like I was a nanny on the side. I was doing whatever I needed to do to make a little extra money because, when you're starting out, it's not always like that. It's not always easy. And I remember just being so excited to have like a studio apartment, but it was expensive to pay for everything. And I actually had an opportunity to go work at Nesson. with the Bruins, and hockey has always been really a part of my life. My husband just retired 2 years ago. My dad played professionally. My brother played. So hockey, I played. I mean, it's in me. It's just a part of who I am. And I had this opportunity to go to Nesson to be the sideline reporter for the Bruins, but I was honest with Fox the whole time, saying like, I'm going to have to do it. It would be incredible, but I've loved Fox. You guys have given me a chance. I just want to let you know that, if there's nothing that pops up, I'm going to have to take it. And I wanted to, too. It would have been special to do hockey, but it also felt like hockey was not going to push me in a different way since I've known it so well my whole life. Told FS1, I had a couple, Fox angels looking out for me who are still here. Some of them who were like, you know what, I've worked with her on stuff. Like, let's give her a shot. Fly her out to audition. Flew out here it was a less than a day turnaround. Landed, came and auditioned. Jacob Ullman, he brought me up to audition. It was a whirlwind, a 30-minute. I don't even remember. I was so nervous what happened. But at the end of the audition, because Jacob loves this story, I was like, hey, can you hold up a second? And I went and I thanked the crew because I knew they had stayed. I think Jacob mentioned he was like, their lunch is shorter because we wanted to squeeze in this audition, which was obviously so nice. And I went and thanked the producers and the teleprompter and the crew. And he was like, that really stood out to me. Like, we haven't had a lot of people like go behind the scenes, and it obviously to him, it stood out. And I think, and I believe they saw potential because I know I was green, very green. I've seen that audition tape and I'm like, wow, thank you guys for taking a chance on me. And they said, hey, I got back on a plane, landed in Minnesota, had a voicemail from them saying, if you want to come to FS1, we're going to hire you. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we need people here and we like you. And I told the Bruins and Nesson that I was going to go to LA because Fox had been so good to me. So it's wild. Like, had I ended up at Nesson, because Nesson is such a great place to be. It can help so many careers and it's a huge market, but I'd been in Boston at school. LA, I just, in my gut, felt like it was going to push me in a different direction. And it really has paid off in that sense. But part of me thinks like, I'll work in hockey one day again. I love it. I mean, it's part of me. Like, it's in my back pocket and I have it if needed. So.
Well, one of the things, and I wanted to touch on this, at the World Cup in 2018, you pulled out of your back pocket your ability to speak fluent French. And I know we talked about this a couple years ago when I did an interview with you for Galvanize. How cool of a moment was that for you to showcase your versatility on the worldwide stage? Because I know it not only impressed fans at home, but it also impressed, the France national team. I mean, he talked about how you got to interview one of the players, and that was the first interview he'd ever done with an American reporter.
Yeah. Oh, good. Gosh, that's so nice you remember that. And honestly, that still makes me nervous thinking about it because one of my close friends, Doc, his name is Ryan Doherty, and he and I were traveling around for the World Cup. And the whole scenario was wild that I was supposed to be with the U.S. men, obviously, who did not qualify. And I had been traveling. I'd been with the women at the World Cup the year before. So I had this kind of embedded experience with the U.S. women's national team. So special. They go on to win, of course. It's about as good as it can get. And the men not qualifying was really hard for Fox, but also just hard for knowing, well, what's this role going to look like? And it was intimidating walking into. I had gone to a French immersion school growing up, which I now have to thank my parents for because I complained about it. In Minnesota, public school, French immersion. We didn't speak English till 5th grade at school. It was hard for me. It wasn't I had friends that it was easy for them. And the language for me was always a little challenging, but I'm so grateful that I stuck with it. So I did French immersion throughout elementary school, high school, did some AP classes, and really was fluent. Like, my written French is not as strong as my conversational French just because of the immersion and how you learn. But as France continued to do well in the tournament, I always had the French in me, and I had been using it like a little bit through motocross. There were a couple French riders we would have fun with, but not a ton. And I had started writing emails to the French press officer in French, just like, hey, I speak French, I can do these interviews. And at the same time, they don't know me. I mean, the soccer audience is just, it's crazy once you step out of the American scene of soccer, because it's big here, but there are reporters from everywhere, all around the world at the World Cup. And he finally, the French press officer, as he got to know me and see me, I'd go to trainings and I'd be around, I'd speak French. He was like, all right, maybe we can give her a shot. But really when it all started was, so post-match, you have the opportunity to interview players, and they give you a couple options. And it was Antoine Griezmann, and his profile says French or English. So he can do the interview in either language. So it's appropriate to say like, hey, what would you like to do, French or English? And I swear he looked at me like, let's do this in French. Like, let's see how this goes for you.
Like bring it on. Let's see.
Yeah. Like, you're really going to do this in French right now? And it was so nerve-wracking. Like, it's nerve-wracking to do interviews in English. I still get like jittery about it. And it was so cool because I felt like I could see his eyes like, all right, she can do this. Like, it's okay. And after that interview, they allowed me to do a couple more. And I wish my French, I couldn't translate it back. Like, I give so much credit to translators who do it just so quickly and so succinctly. I wasn't there yet, but we did a couple interviews, and I'm so grateful for that, right? And then they go on to win the World Cup, and I'm there able to talk to Kylian Mbappe, like you mentioned, in French, but just incredible moment. You know, I would never have expected that. So thank you, I guess, French Immersion and mom and dad for making me do that. And now I can speak French, and I hope one day I can send my kids to an immersion school. It doesn't matter what language, but it's been fun to have.
You've worn many hats at Fox Sports since you joined with them nearly 8 years ago. How are you able to manage all the different roles that you hold, and not just manage them, but be successful at them?
Well, I think there's something to kind of constantly being challenged in different roles. And I briefly mentioned it, but like when they hired me, they said, we don't really know exactly what this is going to look like, because they were new sports and new programs were kind of just developing overnight. And Supercross was one of those opportunities, which is motocross, motorcycle racing. I did not know it well. Same Jacob Ullman, our friend, he had called me into his office and said, what do you know about motorcycle racing? And I'm like, actually, I know that Ricky Carmichael's the GOAT. And I love Ricky. We are so close, and I love telling him, and he likes to remind me that he's the reason I got the job. But I truly knew just that. Like, he is the GOAT, and my brother had a Ricky poster in his room. So my brother knew motocross, but I didn't know it well. It was just something I knew, Ricky Carmichael's name and Jeremy McGrath. Those were kind of the two names. And Jake was like, great, let's get you on the road. You're going to be our pit reporter. And this is just almost a foreign language. I had a great producer who still works for FS1, Pete Richards, and he sent me this Bible of all, Supercross, what you need to know, names, stats, what are the whoops. And we are just learning from the beginning. But what was so unique, and I remember calling my parents before the first race I did, I was like, well, either I can do TV or not, right? Like, I can learn this, but can I handle it? And just being out of a comfort zone. And it was probably about 5 races in, I felt like the fan base, one, saw that I was committed to the sport and committed to being a good reporter and asking the right questions. And the behind the scenes access is like a reporter's dream. You can talk to anyone. You can talk to mom and dad. You can talk to brother, sister. You can go behind the scenes and see them in their pits. Like, you get access where when we're doing college football, you can't just walk into the locker room and sit down and chat. So I loved the access and the storytelling, and the fan base, like, it took them a little, but I think once they saw that I was committed to just doing my job as a reporter and bettering the sport, they were all in. And I still miss it. I still communicate with some of the riders. I watched the championship race a couple weeks ago. Like, it's one of those sports where it kind of welcomes you in and embraces you. And it was really, really important to my growth, just getting reps as well. So, take any gig, learn it, and you just never know what it's going to open up.
I think that's one of the best points that we've heard on this podcast, because if the fans see that you're committed, you're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort, you know what you're talking about when you're doing your sideline hits, you're asking the right questions, you're getting that validation from them, like, hey, she's putting in the work, you know, and like people see that. And I think that's why, you know, reporters go such a long way in their careers when they take on those gigs that they don't know anything about, because it shows just how committed to your craft you are and how seriously you take preparation. And I know that we talk a lot on The Rise about preparation and how important it is for every game or event that you cover. And for you specifically, you have done the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show, BattleBots, college football, NFL, MLB. I mean, the list goes on and on. What does your blueprint look like for you when preparing for all these different events?
It's a really good point, because I was actually asked the other day, and it's interesting because I'm going to fill in for a baseball day here at Fox, and I'm going to be on set, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I said, like, hey, can I come shadow you guys? And they're like, are you sure you want to come in? I'm like, yes. Like, I want to see how you guys do this start to finish, because yes, I've hosted, I've sat at the desk, but everyone does it different. Every producer has a different flow. So I'm very visual in terms of how I prepare, and just sitting in helped me a lot. And yeah, I watch baseball, but do I watch it with the same eye of being a host? Not right now, but over the next month before I fill in, I'm going to. Like, you can always be challenged in a different way. And I think flexing that muscle is a really good tool to have, where I feel comfortable as a sideline reporter, but I can also jump in and do something different. It's not easy though. Like, I went home and I'm like, I have work to do. Like, I can't just be the biggest baseball pro overnight and know stats and players and everything. And it's going to take a little time. But like you mentioned, the dog show. So I have the dog show in a month, and it's such a fun event, but there are 206 breeds. Now I better double check. I think it was 204 last year. And I feel like we added 2 new breeds. So now I'm questioning myself. I got to prepare. But like, I'll go back and watch last year's dog show. I study the names. It seems like it'll be so fun. It's dogs, right? But to the Westminster crew, this is their Super Bowl. So you have to kind of pay it that same respect. And here's my French, the Petit Basset Griffon Vendéen, the pronunciations matter. Like, a lot of French dogs, which I appreciate, but you know, you have to know those little things, or it's just easy to be called out. And that's where the preparation comes in. Pronunciations are big. And I'm not going to say I've never made mistakes on pronunciations, but you have to just be on your game in that sense, because nowadays, like, nothing is missed. And, you know, take social media with a grain of salt, but like, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But I like the challenge of having something to think about and focus on. And now in my brain, I'm like, okay, well, how many baseball games am I going to fit in? Can I come shadow again? Watching Kevin Burkhardt, who's like the best host. He's like, yeah, I don't really use the prompter. And I'm like, I'm probably going to want to use it a little. Like, it's just seeing someone do what they do so well and make it look so easy. You know, you can always kind of just push yourself in that sense. But yes, staying up to date. But I think the preparation is where if you're prepared and well read and researched about what you're doing, that's your biggest way of just being successful in this world.
Let's take a moment to talk about Sage, our sponsor for Season 2 of The Rise. For many of us who are on air, finding pieces that are both stylish and affordable are sometimes hard to come by. This season, The Rise is sponsored by Sage, an online boutique that is dedicated to helping women find looks that help you accomplish your life goals while feeling confident and looking great. Use the code THERISE20 for 20% off your next purchase at shopsage.com, and make sure to follow @ShopSage on Instagram for updates on new arrivals and more.
Well, I want to turn the tables here a little bit and talk about one of the other hats that you wear at Fox Sports. You're the moderator for Skip and Shannon Undisputed. And, you know, so much nowadays, sports debate shows and big and bold personalities are what a lot of fans love to see nowadays. What sort of challenges and thrills do you face as a moderator on the show?
Biggest challenge is my 4 a.m. alarm clock, but I think that goes without saying. And then Skip like works out before the show, and he puts me to shame. Like, he's up at 2 a.m. working out, and Shannon just works out like twice a day. And so they're crazy. They're so committed. But I love what I truly will say about Skip and Shannon is the preparation for them. Yes, we talk NFL a lot. We talk NBA, we talk LeBron, we talk MJ. So yes, some of those storylines come back, but they're just diligence of facts and knowing and watching everything. Like they do not watch. They will watch every single game. And I just think that says so much about their success and why they've been so successful at this, because they're ready. Like they prepare for a debate every single day like it's the Super Bowl, because it is to them. And I so admire Skip's work ethic, and that's kind of actually inspired me. And Shannon, like he has a photographic memory, like his memory, and just from when he played, he's so good. He's so funny. But like today, he calls Julio live on air. And I'm like, wasn't expecting that. And it's all over social media. Like you, as a moderator in that sense, like you kind of have to be ready for anything. And the show's really not scripted. The debates are prepared in terms of where we're going to go. But like, I didn't know he was calling Julio. I don't know the mood they're going to be off the top of the show. Like there's a level of just kind of being ready for anything and knowing when to interject when we have college football. Of course, I find it important that I have an opinion. I mean, I know Justin Fields, of course, like the draft conversations became really important on Undisputed and picking and choosing those moments. But at the same time, understanding that as a moderator, like I'm kind of just making sure we stay the course. So I just think the role, it's interesting. Like sitting in it is different when you're next to such strong personalities, and you just have to have a voice to kind of hold your own. And I've learned that. It's been 3 years, which is wild, but it's fun. It's fun to do both, because I think it just feels like you're able to just live a lot of different lives in this world.
What do you think has carried over from being a moderator to sideline reporting and vice versa? Have they helped each other at all?
That's a really good question. I'd say, funny enough, like, I mean, people love to ask me about Skip and Shannon on the road. You know, that comes up a lot. Like, what are they really like? I'm like, they are really like that. They are that turned on all the time. This is not an act. But just the ability to have a strong voice is probably, confidence-wise, has helped me. You know, when you're a sideline reporter, I think sometimes you only get so limited time, one with the players and coaches, that you really have to be confident in your delivery. And I think just the reps of doing that show every day has made me stronger in that sense. And, you know, it's the same with like this year was hard with not one-on-one time. So when you have it at games, you really have to kind of own it. And that's helped me. But I think just my knowledge of the game, so just being around them too, has just helped me. Like you're always learning. And I like that. I learn from them. Like it's kind of goes both ways, and hopefully I can help them too.
I feel like in this industry, you have to almost have the mentality of a sponge, right? Like you are taking in information from everywhere, because you just by sitting in on their conversations, I'm sure you pick up things that you're like, oh, I didn't know that. And then it makes you think in a different way about the game.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Like, and you're never, I'm always learning, and my memory is not like, it blows me away just how well they can remember some stats and stories. And I'm always impressed by their work ethic, because it really is inspiring, because no one is taking a day off. Like there's no day off for Skip or Shannon, for our producers. Like it's a 2.5 hour show, and just to do that, and it's a grind for them. So it really is inspiring to be around.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. You have had the opportunity to be on some of the biggest stages in your career, whether it be the World Cup or the Stanley Cup Finals, to add to that list. As you look ahead to the next few years, what other events do you hope to cover and add to your resume?
Wow. Well, there's so many. You know, I'd say like a goal of mine, you know, I'm very much looking forward to the dog show this June, which is fun because it's not at the Garden. They moved it outside because of COVID. And I think it's going to be really fun and different. It's under a tent, less fans, of course. And, you know, the Garden is so special and historic, but at least it's able to happen. So it'll be fun that it's outdoors and have a different kind of flair. It's also on Fox this year, which is really cool. That's fun. And, you know, the baseball that I mentioned will be great to kind of be a part of and just add that hopefully to my resume as someone who can fill in on those events. And, you know, World Cup 2022 is coming up. Cutter, I don't know what Fox is going to do. Of course, I would love to go. The unique part about this World Cup, it will be in the winter months. So I would never have a say, right? If someone said, would you want to do NFL, college football, World Cup? I'd be like, send me where you want me, because you can't go wrong.
I mean, you can't go wrong with either of the, or any of those options.
Russia was craziness, but like I would do it again. Like the World Cup is just so, it's hard to describe the like grind of these world events. And, you know, of course the Olympics are not on Fox, but working in Olympics would be a goal one day, like just being a part of that. I mean, you mentioned hockey. I'd love to be a part of a Stanley Cup again. I was really hoping Fox would have got the hockey rights, because playoff hockey is so good. I was like, Shannon, are you and he was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot in between my NBA games, but like, there's nothing like it. So we'll see where my career goes. Like I've been so blessed and happy to be here. And some days I'm like, maybe I'll end up in Minnesota one day and work in sports there. Like, you never know. I do not take it for granted. And I try to remind just anyone in this, because there's a lot of people who could do what I'm doing, and I'm really lucky. So I just want to keep performing on I hate the word performance, but like you're only as good as the next day you're on air. So you just kind of got to keep sharp in a lot of ways.
Well, I'm excited to see the events that you continue to cover. I know I'll be tuning in for the dog show to watch you on that. But to round the show out today, we are going to do my favorite segment. It's called Quick Hits. It's just 5 questions for you to get to know you outside of broadcasting a little bit. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, ready.
All right. First question for you. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh gosh, go-to karaoke. I sang karaoke the last time, because I don't do it often, was Wisconsin, Madison. And my parents went to Wisconsin. My mom grew up in Madison. So like Wisconsin is my jam. I didn't go there because I was not a good enough hockey player, but I love it there. And I sang Grease with one of our PAs. And it was like, what is this song? It's Summer Lovin'. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I know there's video somewhere, and I'm like, Anthony, like, let's not put that video.
That'll be your next TikTok. Just
I was feeling it.
Do a little throwback video.
Oh yeah, I was feeling really confident. State Street is just a good time after those games, so it was fun. So maybe I'll just stick to Grease. That'll be my answer.
All right. Question number 2. What is a quote that you live by?
Oh gosh, quote that I live by. I mean, it's like so like boring, but like just be kind and treat people the way you want to be treated. So it's, I think it's one that doesn't necessarily stand out, but I'm really conscious of that. And I try to know the crew and know who's behind the scenes. And like, there's so many people in this world that make us look good that don't get that love behind the scenes. And I love like when Gus Johnson, Joel, when we're on the road, and Gus will list out every single person on our crew who's a part of it, because it all matters. Like how we treat people is what we're going to get back. So I really try to live by that. And like, I'm not perfect at that every day, but I really try to.
Well, it's a simple phrase, but it goes such a long way. And to show that, like your story you told earlier about your audition, with how far that went with, Jacob, and when you had your audition, being kind goes such a long way, especially in this industry, because none of us could do what we do without the people that are behind the camera and behind the scenes.
There's so many little things.
I love that.
Trey, my audio guy on college football, like I never, like when you think about audio inside the big house, like you think of the noise, and obviously last year, not with the crowds, but the fact that I don't deal with audio issues, and I've had bad audio, right? Like, and it's the engineers are so brilliant, but to think that like Trey and that whole audio crew, like they're so good at what they do, and I don't take it for granted. I'm like, Trey, thank you, because how am I hearing right now inside a loud stadium? And like that little thing that is so important for how I do my job well. So I love Trey. Shout out to Trey. He's just the best.
Question number 3. What is the most memorable interview you've ever done?
Let's see. We talked about the French interviews. We talked about, this is like so random, but it keeps popping in my head because I've done some cool interviews with college coaches after big games and players and moments, but I interviewed Pink, like from Supercross early in my career, because she is married to Carey Hart and he's obviously a former racer, and she was so kind. We sat down in Venice. This is probably 2013, and I was so nervous. Like I felt like I just won the lottery, that I'm sitting down with Pink, with Alicia and Carey, and talking about racing. And I told her, I'm like, I'm actually new to California. She was like, well, what do you like to do? I'm like, I like yoga, Pilates. She's like, oh, okay, well, you should come to yoga with me on Monday. I was like, okay, sure, I'll go to yoga with you. And I think we had done the interview like a week before Monday. So I was like, there's no way she shows up to yoga in Santa Monica. And there she was. She showed up. She was like, oh, good to see you. We did yoga. We chatted. Like, I've seen her at the racetrack, and she's so cool and normal. And I just found that to be one of the coolest interviews, because she was so normal. And I felt like, all right, I'm a part of LA now. So it was
absolutely. Yeah. And not to mention all her aerial skills and all that, and her performances. She just won what was the award she won at the Billboard Music Awards last night?
I know.
Was it like Artist of the Decade or no? That had to have been Drake. Good. I don't know. Regardless, that
it was, and she's so good at yoga. Like, I was sitting there like, oh, like, no wonder she's so good at all her aerial moves. And she's just like a normal human. Like, the fact that she invited me to yoga and then came, it was just, that was pretty special. That was a cool interview.
Question number 4. What has been your favorite debate you've ever been a part of on Undisputed?
Favorite debate. Gosh, favorite debate. Oh, I think the Undisputed fans, I don't know if they would agree or disagree with me, but the LeBron MJ thing is kind of like what the show is about in a lot of ways. And I feel like you can't ever win, because it's just, there's so many different angles. But when The Last Dance came out, and that was during COVID, and that was kind of just a time where we were like, without live sports, like, that's what our show thrives on. And I think the audience as well. And I think The Last Dance provided like such a incredible lens as to who MJ was, and just how it kind of expanded that debate. I found it really fascinating. And just watching that, I want to rewatch it right now, just thinking about it. So that was kind of fun to be a part of. And we were at the Super Bowl in Miami, obviously right before the world shut down. And that was just like, to have a live audience, to have some of the athletes joining us on set, like, that's Undisputed in my favorite way, because that's almost a combination of the Sideline. Like, I love the fan base. I love the energy of feeling it, and just having those moments in Miami. Like, it was such a special experience, which hopefully we're going to get back to, this time around. But that was cool to be a part of.
Question number 5, last one for you. What is your go-to game day snack you have to have with you in your bag on the sideline? Let's hear it.
Go-to. Not that exciting, although I feel like it's common. It's a peanut butter jelly sandwich, sometimes just peanut butter. Joel Klatt and I always make like a pregame PB&J. And we also always get coffee the morning before our game. And then he and I often would get ice cream the night before our game. Like, it just became a tradition to try out the best college ice cream parlors, because of course we should do that, right? So peanut butter jelly is kind of my go-to. It doesn't upset my stomach, just kind of fills you up enough. Like, I never eat a lot before games. I get the same rush from playing as Sideline. Like, it's the same nervous energy, but it definitely, I've found myself, I thrive in that. Like, I like that. It's just, you have to not have too much caffeine along the way, but yeah, peanut butter sandwich. I'm sticking to it.
There you go. Simple. It gets the job done. But hey, I have to say, if you make it back to Manhattan, Kansas, if you haven't already been, you have to go to Call Hall. It's an on-campus little ice cream place.
I don't think we have.
Well, be sure to go there, because it is
really
divine.
I'm trying to think. There was a cute coffee shop I found in Manhattan right next to the hotel we would stay at. And it was like this cute little spot that I would always sit and do notes. I love finding a little coffee shop if there's any couple hours in between meetings. And like, that's just fun for me to, see the fans and just see the area. And I just think it's fun to sit. I can't think of the name right now, but it was super cute.
Well, there you go. I'll have to send you my list of
Please,
places that you need to go to.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Jenny, it was so great catching up with you today. I am so appreciative for you coming on The Rise. I know that our listeners will appreciate all of your advice as well. And we can't wait to keep watching you rise and all that you continue to do.